But thank you for joining us for this edition of True Talk with my special guest here, Dr. Alduan Tartt. Many of you might know him already. He is a psychologist, he's a motivational speaker, he's a minister, he's a father, he's a husband, he's an author, and he's an intervention specialist, a relationship specialist, just a number of things, and a graduate of our own ministers in training program right here at Word of Faith, and filled with the Holy Ghost. You don't have to choose whether you're going to be educated or spirit-filled. You can be both. And he's an example of that. So will you give a wonderful word of faith welcome to Dr. Alduan Tartt as he's here tonight. And we're going to talk about loneliness and grief. Not that they're necessarily together. Those are two separate issues, I'm assuming. I guess some lonely people are grieving too, though, a lot of them. And but we'll just think about it. We'll think about that for a moment. But you're a psychologist. Is there a conflict between psychology and God?
Now, I thought you were going to pre-screen these questions. No, God creates all things. God creates all things. And so when you start talking to people about the belief system, they will talk about God. I see the two as intertwined because people want the faith and the works. They want the practical application to the word. So yes, I'm praying for my spouse. I want her to do the right thing. You want him to do the right thing. But after we finish praying, help us to figure out what to do. So it's an extension of pastoral counseling.
Isn't that great to know? I'm so glad. Now, in terms of this whole idea of loneliness, is loneliness and being alone, is that the same?
No. There was an article that came out in Psychology Today, this month's edition, and it talked about loneliness having the same impact on our health as obesity and smoking. Obesity and smoking. Loneliness has the same impact. So you can be lonely and be in a relationship. In fact, the article said that 60% of people in married relationships reported feeling lonely at one time or another.
Well, blow me down.
Imagine that. And so they said that chronic loneliness can take up to 14% off of your life. So that's 10 to 12 years from being chronically lonely. So when we talk about heartache and we start talking about a broken heart, it is real. So you can also be single now. There are people that are single and they're perfectly happy because they're connected and they have friends and they have family. So it's really about being connected.
Wow, that's great. All of the single people, raise your hand. Oh my goodness! Wow. And so then it's true then that when the Lord said that it is not good that the man should be alone, he wasn't necessarily implying that he had to be married or that she had to be married in order to be fulfilled, or was he?
Well, when we look at it, scientifically, what we know from the research is that marriage benefits men more than it benefits women. Married men are happier, healthier, and wealthier. That's a fact. So we're happier because we have a friend to talk to every day. We have someone to share.
Wait a minute, let's back this up. Ladies, write this down. Ladies, listen, my dad was a masterful salesman. And he taught you sell people on the benefits. You sell people. Say that again. Give them those 3 benefits. Ladies, get your phones out. Write this down.
That's right. Men, you need to hear this. Because a lot of times we think, oh man, being single is fun and it's awesome. But married men are happier, healthier, and wealthier.
Wow.
Can I break it down?
Break it down.
All right, so So they're happier because they have someone to share their world with.
Yeah.
So you have memories. So you're not lonely. You have a companion. You have someone to talk to every day. You have someone to share your ups and downs with, because men tend to be isolated. So when we go through downs, we tend to go to our back cave and we don't have anyone to talk to about our dreams and our passions. We are healthier because our wives nag us to go to the doctor. All right? So I'm not lonely. I'm shouting out my wife, who's here tonight, and my mom and dad. They nag us not only to go to the doctor, but also to go to follow-up appointments. So insurance companies know this. So the premium on a man that's not married is going to be higher than a man who's married, because they know his wife is going to say, "What did that doctor say today?" Right. "Nothing." No, he or she didn't. You need to go on back and go. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to send the appointment with you. Going to make the appointment. And then we're wealthier for two reasons. One, we get to go half on the mortgage, double on the income. All right, but also we don't take as many risks. We don't take as many unwise risks when we have a wife and kids who are along, for the ride. So we make wiser decisions, so we're wealthier.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm a living witness that when you're married, and particularly if a doctor has given the man some dietary restrictions, the wife becomes the warden who is controlling. Is like, he said, you can't have any fried foods. You can't have any red meat. You can't have this. You can't have that. Or that you're supposed to have this twice a day. And then they actually help us to stick to the doctor's orders. So I certainly can see how just being married helps us to be healthier just from that standpoint, not only in their encouraging us to go to the doctor for exams, but helping us to live out the dietary prescriptions that they have given us.
I'm laughing because when I married my wife, I learned a new term I had never heard. It's called Pescetarian. How many of you ever heard of that? All right. And so my wife educated me that she's a pescatarian. And so that means that I'm no longer allowed to eat meat. I can only eat seafood and vegetables because that's what she eats. So the only time I get a chance to eat chicken is when at lunch at Chick-fil-A. Because at home, she cooks no meat. But I'm looking good because of it, so I appreciate you. But anyone that wants to cook me chicken, I will receive it.
Wow. And you said that obesity and smoking have about the same effect as chronic loneliness. That's serious.
People underestimate what happens when you yearn for a partner. And so I really don't believe, and you tell me what you think, of course, if it's wrong, that God would put a yearning for you to yearn for something, for him to not fulfill it in some way. And so there are people out there that I feel who are unnecessarily single. They're unnecessarily single. And so they yearn for it. I know I'm built to be married. When I was looking for a wife, I went out every night. That's just how I am. How am I going to meet her at the house? She is out there. I'm going to go find her. All right. And so what we know is that when you yearn for companionship, especially if you've been married and you're now a widow, that's a hard life to bear because you know that you're the marrying type. And so when you yearn for it, it increases your stress. And what happens when you have increased stress is that you have increased cortisol dumps into your body. And what cortisol does is it makes everything 11 times worse. So what you see is when a lot of, especially women, because of their metabolism, when they go through heartbreak, they pick up weight. That's that cortisol being dumped into their bodies. So when we start talking about the spirit of loneliness, people have to take action in making sure they're not unnecessarily lonely.
Wow. Now, Psalm 68, verse 6, God there says that he takes the single person and sets them in families. Some of the versions says that he takes the solitaire, the single person, and sets them in homes so that they are a part of another community. So it didn't say necessarily that he takes every single person and gives them a spouse, but the key is that they need to be connected into a loving, caring community where there is communication. They're getting into each other's world, and they know that they matter. I mean, there's something. I told you in South Africa they have this expression "sawubona," which means "I see you." I see you, and they know that every person has a need to be seen, and they acknowledge the people. It's like they understand this thing, that they're a tribe, even when they're not necessarily directly blood related, but they understand we're a family. We come from the same area. There's something that gives us what we would consider to be a kindred spirit. And you're saying that's a healthy thing.
Well, can I tell you what I learned in the Ministers in Training program here?
Sure, of course. By all means.
Reverend Courtney will be proud of me. We learned that when Paul founded churches, he went and he prophesied the gospel. He professed the gospel. The next thing he did was group people together. He grouped them together. And then the third thing he did was he instructed them intensely. And so you have to ask yourself, why would he group them before instructing them? Because he knew if they were not grouped together that the devil could pick them off, that an immature believer could fall off because they didn't have support of other believers edifying them in the faith. So when we start thinking about loneliness, part of the job of the church, and this is why we have small groups here, is that when you come, it's not just about being part of corporate prayer and corporate service. You need to be part of a family. And so there are people out there who have been hurt. And they say, I don't trust anyone. I put it on I want to be in a relationship. I want to trust family. I want to trust other women. I want to trust other men. But you can't trust them as far as you can see them. You know that? You can't trust them. And so what happens is they purposely isolate themselves, which makes whatever they're going through unbearable. And another thing is that the mindset shift that needs to happen is that what we found as psychologists is that people who are lonely are no different from anyone else, except in how they think. So instead of calling someone and saying, I'm lonely, I want to go out tonight, or I want to go to the movies with someone, I want to go to dinner, instead of calling someone, they start thinking, you know what? They're probably too busy. You know what? They're going to consider me a burden. Or you know what? They just got married. When I call, they're going to think that I'm bothering them. So they talk themselves out of even calling someone. Now, part of that is true. But the other part is not. So what it is that they're overly negative. So they may call 4 friends. 3 may say I'm busy. But the 4th one will say, I was waiting on you to call. I'm lonely too. My husband gets on my nerves. I'm ready. Let's go out and have a good time. So they're too negative. And then the second thing is when they ask, it's not positive. They kind of talk the person out of going with them. Say, I know you're busy. All right. And I know you're working on a lot of things. And it's probably going to be no one out there for us to find. Probably all the men in Atlanta probably going to stay at home tonight. But if you want to, get out, and it's probably raining and dark, but if you want to go out with me, if you're not too busy, I don't feel well. My leg hurts, and I need to be in by 8:30. So what it is that they're actually giving the person a reason to say no, because they're afraid of rejection. So if they shift that to be more positive and ask in an excited way, they'll be less lonely because people will want to hang out with them.
Now, we have an issue with we've got an aging population now. And I watch people's parents do this. Parents that may have children in the same city. And the parent won't call the child to say, I'm lonely. Come over to my house, take me out to dinner, do this, do that. And because I think they're having that internal conversation saying they're busy. They've got their own lives. I don't want to interrupt them. And then I've had the kids of these same lonely parents say to me, well, I told my mama that The telephone works both ways. She's waiting on me to call her, but she can call me and I won't be offended. How did we communicate to a lonely, aging population, particularly parents, that I'm your child and it's not going to be a big bother to me if you call me and let me know that you want to go out? And could they even set a date or a scheduled time to say, you know what, once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month, once a week, let's see if we can do this. And if you can't do it sometimes, that's fine, but let's do this on the 3rd Thursday. Let's go over the Word of Faith.
I just caught that. That's what counseling is. I can tell you something that happened today. There's a young man that's suffering from loneliness, just broke up with his girlfriend, going through it. And he said, today I'm going to bring my mom in. And he brought his mom in. And in therapy, we teach you to talk in terms of feelings, not thoughts. Because we can argue about thoughts all day, but I do care about how you feel. And he told Mom, I feel unloved, I feel lonely, and I feel undernurtured. I feel undernurtured. And I need you to call me and just check on me to see how I'm doing. And maybe go out to dinner, once or twice a month. And the mom was shocked because she didn't know that he felt that way. She felt that he wanted to be left alone, but something in her spirit was saying, be worried about him. And they were able to arrange that they would text or talk every day and meet in person at least once or twice a month. So what we know that families that play and pray together stay together. But what happens when your family of origin didn't do that? That becomes your norm for family. And so you grow up thinking that isolation and not talking to your kids is normal. But as parents, we have to set the standard and call our kids. So, I see a lot of children. And there are a lot of parents that say, well, if you want something, call me. That's backwards. That's backwards. Because what that tells the kids is that I don't think about you. I don't think about, if you don't call me, I don't think about you. You don't cross my mind.
But now what about the parents that are afraid that if they call the kid, they're going to ask them for money? I'm just keeping it real now. Some of them don't call until they need money.
Right. Well, what we know is girls, women tend to talk to their mother all the time. All right. Boys, you have to find them. So here's the critical thing. If you are raising a young daughter or a teenager, you all have to set the standard to where you're talking every day. Because when they go off to school and they don't have that, they're missing relationship. They're missing relationship. And you have to set that with boys as well. You have to let them know that, hey, you need to call. And my parents knew I was okay because I went to Morehouse, similar to yourself. All right. Shout out to the house. Sorry, how we are. My mom knew I was alive and well when she would come home from work and there'd be a big piece of chocolate cake missing because I would come home, take cake, take food at the refrigerator and go back to my dorm. And she would call and say, at least you could call and say hello before you steal everything out of the refrigerator, So we have to make sure that we make that the standard. This is going to shock a lot of people. When I talk to teenagers, their biggest complaint is that they don't get enough FaceTime with their parents. And that sounds weird because they're always saying, leave me alone, or get out of my room, or did you knock? But they're lonely. The research is showing that the Snapchat, Instagram, they're not on Facebook because we are, so they ran. Twitter, they don't feel like that's enough. They have 100 friends, but not one will come to their birthday party.
Right.
Not one will show up to their football game. Not one will, if they're sad, or if it's the anniversary of the death of someone, will come by or give them a card. They feel incredibly lonely. So they need us more than ever. So we have to make sure that we're checking in with our kids every day and not just giving directives. Clean this up. Put this up. That's not it. How was your day today? What happened in school today? How are you feeling? And so that goes both ways. That goes both ways.
Yeah. Now I've seen it in my years as a pastor, where young men particularly don't just initiate that conversation. They can have deep issues going on. Women have a tendency to talk out, men act out. And sometimes their acting out is a withdrawal that says, I'm not talking now, something is wrong with me. We had a young man in this church, 25 years old, had his own business. He was dating a girl. This young woman broke up with him. It broke his heart. It literally broke his heart. He went out to Stone Mountain, jumped off, and committed suicide. Left some instructions for me. I, as his pastor at that time, I sensed something was going on in the spirit with him. I sat down and wrote him a letter. He would have gotten my letter the day before he committed suicide, but he moved and didn't update his address in our system. And little did I know that some years afterwards, his mother called me and she said, I was going through my son's things and I found the letter that you wrote to my son the day before he committed suicide, hearing the cry that was going on the inside of him and ministering to his spirit. And she said, to know that God knew where my son was. And it brought consolation to the mother's heart who'd been deeply disturbed, wondering whether her son was in hell. But he was in pain, and he was not trying to end his life, he was trying to end the pain. And he didn't feel like he could have anybody to talk to. He had a mama. He had a pastor. I felt it and reached out to him, and it would have gotten him. That's just why you have to keep your information updated in our system. You really do. I mean, honestly, it had reached his place the day before he committed suicide.
I mean, that's heavy. That's heavy on my heart. Because I see young men each day. And I can tell you what we learned in the psychological community that we were doing wrong in screening for suicide. And so I feel this heavy because someone needs to hear this right now. Instead of asking someone if they feel like killing themselves, men often say no. They see right through the question, especially if they're talking to a psychologist, because they know they're going to be hospitalized. What you look for are other warning signs. What you look for is radical shifts in behavior, giving away things, financial irresponsibility, all right? Because who cares if the car note is paid if I'm not going to be here? You also look for if they feel like a burden. Suicide is about feeling like a burden and thinking the world would be better off if I was not here, if I weren't here. So I'm stressing my mom. I'm stressing my wife. I'm not doing right by the kids. I'm not working. All I do is cause misery. The world would be better off if I weren't here. So whenever you hear someone talking about feeling like a burden, or if you sense that in your spirit, that's when you want to start looking for the spirit of suicide. And then the second thing is that a lot of men have never been taught how to talk about emotions. We call it emotion coaching. So when they're in counseling and they're just looking and they don't know what to say. How many of you talk to your husband or your sons, you ask them how they feel and they just, I don't know what to say. All they can say is I feel some type of way or I'm angry. That's our only emotion, angry or agitated. And so men have to be taught And this is important because as a parent, you don't even think about, I have to teach my kid, especially my son, emotions. So to teach him, I'm sad. No, you're not angry. You're embarrassed. You're disappointed. You're frustrated. You're feeling incompetent. So we have to teach men that it's stronger to say your feelings than keep them in. I always tell guys, whatever the harder thing to do is, that's usually the more manlier thing to do. Is it easier to keep it in or to talk about it? So you have to talk about your feelings, because otherwise what you don't talk about only intensifies. And that's why you see a lot of men acting out.
Wow. Are you guys getting some tips that are helping you? Wow. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's so interesting to find men's inability to be able to articulate their emotions, their thoughts. And it's interesting when women have a tendency at times, women express their emotions all the time.
Yes, I know.
I found sometimes that while a woman can easily tell us how she feels, the man on the flip side, he'll tell you what he says what he thinks, but he won't say how he feels. He'll share his thinking about a situation, but he won't really share his feelings. Women will share their feeling, and they don't necessarily share their thinking. They just feel a certain way and then communicate it. And the man is sharing. And so here's the Venus and Mars, and we're having a conversation and never meeting. But it's interesting, just like this young man that couldn't communicate that he was going to commit suicide and showed us no outward signs. He did everything financially responsible. He left money to pay for everything. He was an entrepreneur. He left everything in order. In my first pastorate, they took the liberty of publishing my home phone in the phone book.
You can give it out again, Bishop.
So that line has been disconnected. But it's interesting that I would get calls sometimes in the middle of the night, 2:00 in the morning, strange voice, I'm gonna kill myself. The people who said that always, none of them ever did it. And I was waking out of my sleep, and I was like, well, why are you notifying me about it? Why don't you just... I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't, just go ahead and do it. I'll read about it tomorrow morning. I'll just listen to it on the news. But no, the ones that do, I mean, I don't know. Have you guys found that the ones that we would find individuals that would literally tell us, I'm going to kill myself. And it seemed to me more than anything else, it was a cry for attention, or cry for help or something, but they weren't serious about it. The ones who do it didn't say a word.
It's absolutely a cry for help, but it's dangerous to ignore it.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to ignore it, because when they feel rejected and they feel like, okay, you're just being manipulative.
Yeah,
all right?
Right.
They're crying out for help. Now, sometimes there is some manipulation.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I've had some kids that have manipulated. They threw temper tantrums and they told parents, well, I'm just going to kill myself then. And I said, please don't do this, because you're not going to like the hospital that I send you to. I'm just telling you, because and they come, doctor, come get me out of here. These people, come get me. I said, I can't come get you for 72 hours. It's a 72-hour hold. But when people are calling out, you have to respond to the attention. What is it that you need? What's going on? How can I help? Sometimes just a listening ear is what they need to hear. But then you also have to direct them. Saying you want to kill yourself is not allowed. You can't say that. You can say, I'm feeling the spirit of despair. You can say, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling like I'm getting ready to lose my mind. But you can't say, I want to kill myself, because that means that you need to be hospitalized so that I can stop you. So I applaud men that say that.
Yeah.
We have to applaud for them to say that. A lot of times we think that, especially as men, that machismo, that admitting that you have feelings is a weakness.
Yeah.
But you know what happens? You really become a weak man.
Yeah.
Because you end up taking you end up taking it out on your family.
That's true.
You end up taking it out on your
So
kids. You
Yep.
take it out on your spouse. Because you're so irritable and you're so agitated and you're so depressed, but you won't go to the doctor.
Right.
You won't take medication. You won't go to inpatient. You won't go to inpatient to get off of drugs and alcohol or whatever vices you are using to cope.
Yeah.
The stronger thing to do is to say your feelings
Yeah.
versus bottle them up and take them out on everyone else.
That's very good. And we do, I don't think that the average person is equipped to be a psychologist to people. We have to be able to recognize something serious is going on with this person. This is a cry for help, and you might recognize that the cry for help is above your pay grade. So you need to refer them. You might need to refer them. I've had to refer people to psychiatrists because they needed to be medicated, for real. Some of them needed to be institutionalized with no ability to have it revoked.
You mentioned that, but within the African American community, do you know who our biggest referrer is?
Who is that?
It's two. The church. Because the first people we think about calling are the deacons, the elders, ministers. You know it.
Yeah.
Second one, hairstylist.
Oh,
Hairstylist.
wow.
All right, anyone that's a stylist, they hear more drama, more issues every day. And oftentimes the issues are interconnected.
Yeah.
So they're doing the wife's hair at 9 and the mistress' hair at noon. And they can't say anything. I don't know who Tyrone is. Really? And so that's a very stressful job.
Wow.
All right. And so a lot of times what psychologists do is that we just market to the gatekeepers. We market to churches. We market to primary care physicians. We market to emergency personnel, fire, police,
Sure.
and hairstylists.
Wow.
You will be flooded.
Wow.
Any hairstylist here will tell you, I have about 19 referrals for you. And that was just today before 11 o'clock. That's who we go to for help.
Wow.
So we have to make sure that we're making those connections. So if you're in those roles, you have to make sure that you make the pass, because a lot of people don't trust psychologists.
Right.
All right. They think that we're anti-God.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Or they think that they're crazy
Yeah.
to come into counseling.
Yep.
No, I think it's crazy to terrorize your family
Right.
and to lose everything you have
Absolutely.
versus talk about all the stress you're under.
Yeah, that's so good. These are real practical tips. I hope that you all are thankful for this kind of counsel that we're getting tonight. Wow. So, how big of a problem is loneliness in our society? Is this something are the primary people that are suffering with this? Are they senior citizens? As you said, are they folks that are lonely in a marriage? Are they young people who might have tons of classmates and tons of friends in social media, but yet on the inside they're isolated and really honestly dealing with loneliness?
There's no age limit to loneliness. Babies are good at it because when they get lonely, they cry. They hold their hands up. Trinity doesn't know how to be lonely because she will keep going at it and that's my daughter, 1 year old. Pray for me. They let you know when they're lonely. There are kids that I see that are 4 and 5 that feel lonely because they're dealing with a mom who's depressed, or a mom who has substance abuse issues, or a mom who has bipolar, or a mom who's working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and all she can do is come home and go to sleep and get the basics. So there's no age limit. And this is actually becoming a bigger problem this is going to shock you, since social media.
Yeah, wow.
We think that social media is making us more connected. It is not true.
Yeah.
What social media is doing, it is making us less present.
Yeah, wow.
It's making us less present.
Wow.
There's a book called The Shallows and another book called Deep Work. And it studied this phenomenon of smartphones.
Yep.
And so what happens is you find people that used to be able to read and to write and to focus for long periods of time, now are unable to go 10 minutes without checking their cell phone.
Wow. Yep.
Every 10 minutes we have to check it.
Yep.
We have to, my wife will get on, I have to look at ESPN. I just saw it 5 minutes ago.
Wow.
I have to look at it again to see if the scores changed 2 points.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you see couples out at dinner and they can't even have a conversation.
Yes.
They have to pull the phone out. And you see couples sitting there looking at the phone because they can't engage.
Wow.
You'll have teen girls in a room and they won't talk. They'll be Snapchatting each other and taking pictures.
Right.
And can I talk? Can I get on a soapbox for a minute?
Yes,
and then you have wives while you're on vacation and make you want to take a picture every 3 minutes. You can't even enjoy the vacation. Take a picture. Get on Snapchat. Get on Instagram. Hey, y'all. We still here. We still here. Yeah, we still. If I could just enjoy my wife instead of enjoying it with the rest of social media, that would be great.
Wow.
And so what we know is that that's causing major problems.
Wow.
There are families that at dinner, everyone's on their phone.
Yep. Right.
And so you have the kids feel lonely.
Yep.
Now, mom and dad are quick to tell me what to do. They're quick to fuss.
Yeah.
But they're slow to ask me what's going on. They don't even notice that I'm not even eating my food because they're so busy upgrading their status, updating their status on Facebook.
Yep.
You care more about Facebook. You care more about your likes than checking in with me and making sure I'm okay.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. That's so good. And it is a way, years ago, people would think about what their kids were even watching on television. And if the content was something of a person's character that you would not invite into your home, they wouldn't let their children watch it in the home. They actually screened what their children watched on television. I mean, when I was growing up, you couldn't, I mean, the biggest thing was in Gone with the Wind where they said, Scarlett, I don't give a D or something like that. It was such a shocker to us. So it was totally screened for us. And now all of our filters have just apparently been removed. And it has allowed so much contamination. We don't know who sons and daughters are talking to on social media. Because when they used to have to call our home, they had to deal with our mama or daddy who was going to answer the telephone.
Right.
And now they can bypass the mother and father, instant messaging the children, and before they have the emotional maturity to even know what's going on.
Funny story. I was thinking about it when you were talking. I used to be on the phone with my girlfriend, and my mom would get on the phone. Now, common courtesy would say, "Can I use the phone?" My mom would just pick up and start dialing. Boop, 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 boop. I'm like, hold on, baby. Boop, 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 boop. She was like, stop pushing numbers. That's not me. Boop, 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 boop. I say, Mom, get off the phone. She said, boy, if you don't hang this phone up right now.
That was her phone. That was her phone.
Right. I'll knock you into the middle of next week. In front of my girlfriend's on the other end. I said, all right, Mom, I'm going to get off in a minute. 5 seconds later, you off the phone yet? So anyway, that's to the side. So what's happened is, this is why parenting is harder, is that there'll be a point where your kid won't feel socially connected because everyone around them will have a phone.
Yeah.
We did a group text, and we all went to the park, but since you don't have a cell phone, you're at home alone.
Wow.
And they're trying to tell you, when you take the phone, Mom, you are killing my social life.
Oh, yeah.
There's a certain truth to it.
Wow.
But what's happening is they're able to go to certain videos. And one of the things about YouTube is that it will suggest other videos to you.
Right.
So you can start out. My daughter loves, our oldest daughter, who's in Florida right now, looks at slime videos. She likes to make slime out of glue. For those of you who have parents, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. All right, so it's the phenomenon. You can't even find glue at Walmart. I'm just telling you, all right? So she likes to make slime videos. But after the slime video, it'll recommend another video.
Yeah, right.
And if it has slime in it, it can have pornography.
Oh, yeah.
YouTube is trying to be smart but it's suggesting videos that they think
Right.
that you would like.
Yeah.
So there are kids that may start out watching a particular rap video,
Yep.
and then they'll end up watching something they have no business watching.
Yeah, yeah.
And then once they see it, they can't unsee it,
Yeah.
and then you have to address it.
Wow. Wow.
What we know, and this is sad,
Yep.
this is sad, and I'm gonna get on soapboxes for a second. There's a rapper by the name of Future, okay? He has a song called Mask Off, okay? If you look at the video, it's 100% demonic. There's images of demons, people getting shot, people being killed. But the most disturbing part is he talks about using drugs, and he has this line called Molly Percocet. Molly Percocet. So take Molly and take Percocet. What we know as doctors is that Percocet and opioids are the most addictive drugs that you can get in. If you're a doctor in a hospital, they have safeguards where doctors can't even get to opioids because they're so addictive. Wow. So what we've seen is a 500% increase in deaths for kids experimenting with Molly Percocet. Wow. But he's the #1 rapper. So when they go on, they watch the video.
Wow.
So you imagine, so that sends you to other drug videos. You get what I'm saying? So now if you're not checking the social media, your kids are being brainwashed.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it because they cut the phone off and go to sleep.
Wow. That's serious. What can parents do as a practical measure? There have been times that I've gone out. I went out with a group of guys one time to a restaurant, and I had everybody to put their cell phone in the middle of the table. I said, whoever reaches up here to answer their cell phone has to pay the bill.
I would have had alligator arms.
And phone started vibrating, and this terrible temptation came for them to reach to try to get it. It was like it was a drug. Now, they didn't want to do the bill. They didn't want to pay for the bill. It was pricey. They didn't want the bill, but they wanted to get to that phone. But that imposed a discipline on them. It made them think about it, because I wanted them to know we're here so that we can have a real conversation in real time, face to face, without inviting the outside world to this table. And families have to get back to where we can actually be able to do that, setting some type of guidelines. I mean, I know that there's an app called Moments, for example, and it'll track all of your time that you spend on social media, on your cell phone. It'll let you know that you spent 2 hours and 38 minutes on this particular thing in such a time. And when they start seeing those numbers, it might start dawning on them. And you're exactly right. They found that teenagers have been checking their cell phones sometimes 37 times an hour. It's an addiction. You go to Netflix, you watch a video, and when that one finishes, within 5 seconds, another one is starting. So you might have gone just to look at something for 15 minutes, and then 4 hours and 20 minutes later, because it knows it's going to pull up something that is relevant to that. And that's a huge issue. And I was wondering whether social media was a remedy to some people's loneliness. Would it be better to have a pet?
You can't replace touch. All right, so women talk to connect. Men need to feel connected in order to talk. You see a lot of wives touch their husbands before they say a word. You see a lot of moms with their sons touch their sons. This is gonna surprise you, but girls need less physical touch than boys do. Your daughter will be gone somewhere. It'll be your son that will be hugged up under you for small children. The girl will be independent a lot earlier. It'll be the boy that needs that touch. Even when you're around men, we touch, we hug, we pound each other up. When you see coaches, even in gangs, there's a lot of physical touch to embrace. Wow. So what we can do is, one, absolutely every single parent should monitor and screen what's on their kid's cell phone.
Yep.
Just spot checks.
Yep.
Think about it in a elementary school, middle school, high school classroom when the teacher goes and they're unsupervised. What happens the minute he or she leaves? Oh, everything breaks out. But we allow our kids, and this is the blind spot, to be unsupervised on the cell phone and have no idea what's going on. So I do agree with docking the cell phone at the dinner table. So, but you can't be a hypocrite. All right. So I'm at the table, and Raquel, that's our oldest daughter. Phone rings. I look at it. We're in the middle of conversation. I'm looking at it like, what? They traded Paul Millsap? What? What do we get for him? What? My daughter said, Dad, really? 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 Dad, put the phone up. So now we have to dock our cell phones and don't even bring them to the table. Because what's happening, here's the impact, is that we know the science, that these smartphones have limited our attention span. That's why we check it, because that's all that we have. We only have 10 seconds and we have a need for information. I need to check Facebook to see which words mean the same thing spelled backwards. Oh, I need to click that. All right. Oh, game tracker. I need to keep the game tracker on the whole time so I can see every hit from the Braves. I need to see every comment on Twitter from the housewives. Oh, Nene said something? Let me click. All right. So what's happening is it's limited our ability to connect. And what's happening is when you take the phones away, families don't know what to say. Husband and wives don't know how to engage in conversation because they're used to watching sports. They're used to doing anything else but paying attention. So we have to make sure that we teach them the art of connecting. You'd be surprised how many teenage boys I have to teach how to talk to girls.
Wow.
Because I called them, and she said I was boring, and I wasn't talking about anything. I didn't know what to say. I asked her how she was doing. She said, fine. I said, you good? She said, I'm straight. What else do you say? I said, did you ask her what she did at school today? Did you ask her favorite movies? Did you ask her favorite music? No, let me write this down. But we know they're not being talked to that way. So you model. The family is a model. Yeah. And so we're not having back and forth. So we take that for granted, back and forth conversation. Yep. Even at family reunions and family get-togethers, how often have you seen people sit by themselves and be on their phone and they won't connect? Right. We don't allow that. You got to put your phone away. You have to connect with cousins because you don't know who's going through what.
Exactly. Now, I want to touch on this whole idea of grief and the process that people go through. Sometimes the grief is the thing that pushes them into the loneliness issue, because they couldn't get over something that happened to them. And now they went from denial to anger to bargaining to depression to acceptance finally. Some people get stuck in the middle of their grief and they don't know how to get out. And I know that Jesus came to minister to the brokenhearted, grieving people. We've had some people stuck that I didn't know how to get unstuck. What do you have to say for us?
So there's a book out that I want you all to pick up called Option B. It's Option B. It's written by Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. She also wrote Lean In. She suddenly lost her husband, I think back in 2015. And so she understands what it's like to go through the grief process. So there's a book out there called Option B that talks about what you need to do. But let me break it down. So there's 3 reasons why people get stuck in grief. Grief is already hard enough. It's already hard enough for us to deal with. But people get stuck because of 3 P's. The first P is they personalize. They think that there's something that they could have done to prevent that person from passing. You know what? I should have told him to go to the doctor. When they came into the hospital, something about that doctor didn't strike me right. And so when they gave my mom a drug they were allergic to, I knew I should have stayed all night. Yeah. I should have stayed all night because there's something I could have done. You know what? When my son left the house, I had a feeling that someone right, but I talked myself out of maybe I'm sheltering them, and they never returned. And I can't forgive myself. I take it personal because I feel personally responsible. Because I should have said something. So when you get stuck in that P, you see how hard it is to move on when you feel like you're personally responsible? You know, had I saved my money not going on vacation, I could have gotten mom and dad in Johns Hopkins instead of going down to another hospital. I could have gotten the best. I could have sent them down to MD Anderson. All right, but no, I had to buy that car. All right, I had to waste my money. You know, and so that's the first P. Second P is pervasiveness. And this is big, and this is tied into loneliness. My loss is not specific. It's pervasive. My whole life is different. My whole life is different.
Right.
My husband or my wife was my everything. We went to the store together. We went on vacation together. We went to the kids' house together.
Yep.
We took walks every day. We might have worked together.
Yeah.
No one will ever make me feel like my husband or wife made me feel. So my rest of my life, everything is ruined. Yeah. I had a grandma tell me that she had a hard time going back to church because the last time she was in church, she buried her husband. Oh, wow. So she couldn't go to church and have peace because all it did was make her think about what she did not have. Yeah, right. So do you see how that becomes pervasive? So now I don't even feel good about going to church. Yep. Now I don't even feel like going to Sam's Club because he used to pull the truck around and we used to walk and laugh about what's going on. Wow. I can't even go on vacation because I think about what it's like we used to sit up there and listen to jazz. Now I can't even listen to jazz because it makes me, my whole world is devastated. Pervasiveness. Wow. And then number 3, permanent. Permanent. I will never find someone that treats me as well as him. I am permanently lonely. I compare every man to the man that took care of me, and there'll never, ever be another Bob. There'll never be another Sadie. There'll never be another grandma. You know, my wife's best friend before she passed was her grandmother. She talked to her grandmother. And we struggled because I would see that she wanted to talk, but I wouldn't ask questions the way grandma would. I wouldn't know how to ask it, you know, and she'd get upset that I wouldn't ask it, or maybe I would start giving advice, or maybe I would interrupt, or maybe I wouldn't do it, but I can't be grandma. And so for that person, my ability to ever feel like someone can get me is permanently lost. Forever. Wow. Does that make sense?
It does.
So when you have those 3 P's, it keeps you stuck. So let me tell people how to get unstuck briefly. 1, you have to connect with other people. All right. So there's 2 losses. There's the loss of the person that you're grieving, and then there's the loss of you. Yeah. You lost you. Yep. You don't vacation anymore. You don't work out anymore. Yep. You don't go to women's ministry anymore. You don't volunteer at the church. You've lost you. Yep. So what happens is, the way you think about it is that, yes, you've lost your option A. There will never be another grandmother. There will never be another husband like the one that you had. But you have to develop an option B. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of talking to grandma, I'm going to talk to my husband about some things. I'm going to talk to mom about some things. I'm going to talk to my girlfriends about some things. It's not as good as option A. Yeah. But it's option B. I can go to the mall and shop with my girlfriends. Yeah. I can go to church with mama. Yeah. All right. I can go exercise with my sorority. Yeah. So they have to have an option B. And a lot of people get stuck because they say no one will ever be an option A, and that's an insult. Yeah. So we have to make sure they have an option B. And then lastly, and this is on us, we complicate people's grief when we say the wrong thing.
You know, most folks, we don't know what to say. It's the most awkward time of people knowing what to say. I've had to train ministers when they get ready to go in to visit someone in the hospital from walking in asking how you feel. You're in the hospital, for God's sake. You don't want to remind them about how they feel. You know, I go in and tell them certain things. And it's absolutely true. There's sometimes that instead of my just coming into a person's grief, and trying to immediately lift them out of the grief, that I just come into the grief with them. Sometimes it's the most healthy and therapeutic thing to cry with the person. Give them permission to grieve. It's so healthy, therapeutic, cathartic, all of those things.
The best analogy I heard in dealing with grief is imagine that you're standing with the person who's mourning and it's raining. All they want you to do is hold an umbrella. They don't want you to get them out the rain.
Right.
Just sit up here and experience what this is like for me. When I want to go inside, I will.
Yeah.
Just hold the umbrella and feel what I'm going through.
Yeah.
So it's not so heavy.
That's so good. And see, that's very easy for me. I'm a pluviophile, a lover of rain.
I needed you to break that down.
I find rain to be very cleansing. I find it to be peaceful. It's a tranquil experience. My wife and I will go out sometime and just listen to the rain. She must have the sickness too.
That's why you have so many children. I can relate. I'm gonna move over. We have a 1-year-old. That's it. All right. So
it creates a mood.
It does.
It does create a mood.
It does.
So since a lot of times we don't know what to say, I mean, what are some of the crazy things that people say, and what should we say instead?
Okay. It's gonna be okay. You don't know that. That's it. All right. I pray that everything will be okay. I will make sure you don't go through this alone. The wrong thing to say is that the Lord won't put more on you than you can bear. That doesn't help, because right now it feels unbearable. It feels unbearable to me. For you to say that, it doesn't help me. Or get over it. How long? Yeah. It's been 2 years, Mama.
Yeah.
Daddy is gone.
Yeah.
Daddy is gone. You need to move on.
Yeah.
That's insulting to people's grief process. Yeah. But they don't call at all.
Yeah.
They don't bring it up. They see you.
Right.
They don't say, how you doing today?
Yeah.
I know you lost your son a month ago. I just want to see how you're doing today.
Yeah.
Now we think, oh my goodness, we don't want to put them in a state of grief. Right. We don't want to exacerbate it. But what they feel is invisible.
Right.
Everyone comes and acts all happy.
Right.
You okay? You know?
Yeah.
You're gonna be all right.
Right.
How was your vacation?
Yeah.
You know, instead of asking them how they're doing. Yep. And that's why what we know is that the best way to deal with grief is to support people, make them feel connected, and put them in a group.
Yeah.
We have a ministry here called Overcoming Loss and Grief Experience.
Absolutely.
You know, the olgministry.org, OLGE ministry.org. Yep. And I think the next date is August 26th. And it's open for anyone, whether you're a member of this church, whether you're a believer or not, because grief affects everyone the same.
Absolutely. And
we know when we put them in a group, something powerful happens.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for me to say, I understand what you're going through, but I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
But when someone else is there and they've lost someone too, there's something that happens.
That's true.
So we have to make sure that if if you're watching this, live stream this, or you need to make sure that your mom, your dad, your brother and sister, they get in a group. You don't let them grieve alone. Yeah. You put them in a group, and we know that accelerates their ability to accept it, because all of them go through the stages of grief together. Yeah. And when they say, I understand you,
sure.
and then you're able to minister to someone else, it gives you a temporary reprieve from your grief, because now you can feel helpful.
Sure.
So we know it's all about the group.
That is so good. Have you all been helped tonight? Wow, will you give Dr. Alduan Tartt a wonderful hand? You haven't written it. Have you written some books yet?
I have a book out, but it's not appropriate for tonight. It's about finding your husband. It's called The Ring Formula. All right, how to be the only one he'll ever meet.
But you got some single women out here who are interested in the Ring Formula.
Well, they can get it on Amazon.
Where are the single ladies? The single ladies, all the single ladies. Didn't Beyonce say put a ring on it?
Yes, you did. But you know what's funny? I met my wife after writing that book. That's a whole other conversation. But what's interesting, I want to make a book recommendation, is the book I'm working on now.
Okay.
All right. It's called Playing Boys. It's called Playing Boys. Playing Boys.
Oh, okay.
It is for teen girls improving their decision making on dating.
Wow.
So it's helping them.
We need that for grown women.
Yeah. So that's the one that's in the work. Yes, we do. And I also want to recommend a book I did not write. It's called Don't Sing Songs to a Heavy Heart by Kenneth Hawk, Dr. Kenneth Hawk. All right? Don't Sing Songs to a Heavy Heart, How to Relate to Those Who Are Suffering.
Wow.
Your ability to support your loved ones means a lot.
Yeah.
Because, just quickly, I know we're wrapping up. I had a grandma complain and said, I'm coming in to see you, not because I want to, but because I can't talk to my family.
Wow.
Because I now am talking to a man. It's been 2 years.
Wow.
And my family is mad at me for entertaining the conversation of another man.
Wow.
But they don't know what it's like to be lonely.
Right.
They tell me to move on, but then they get mad at me when I'm trying to at least have a conversation with a man.
Wow.
And so I had to talk to her about how to talk to her, family. I said, ask them how long they could be alone.
Right. Yeah.
How long what's too long? What's the right amount of time to be lonely?
Exactly.
You don't sit in this world, my whole world has changed.
That's right.
And that's why you see, especially people that have been married for long periods of time.
Yep.
When my grandma passed, 1 month to the day, my grandpa passed. My grandma passed.
Yep.
1 month later in Detroit.
Yep.
Grandpa passed.
Yep.
They can't take it.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
too much suffering.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we rally around our friends and family and support them in the right way and empathize. That would you want to be lonely every Friday night? Yeah. Every Saturday night?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, let mama move on. Right. A quick story, and I promise we'll be gone. Well, at least I'm gone. And I don't think my dad will mind sharing this. So my grandma passed in Kentucky, and the neighbor came over to drop off some cakes and pies for my granddad. All right, he was in his 90s. Wow. And we found out when we went out of town, she was over there every day to drop off pies, cakes and meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She was a widow. Her husband had died 10 years before.
She was lonely.
And we were mad. Everyone was mad. She couldn't even wait till we get out of town. And oh my goodness, it's only been 3 months. When we thought about it, for my grandfather's, my grandma made every meal for him 50-some years.
Wow.
They did everything together.
Wow.
Can we please let that man eat?
Wow.
Let that man eat and have some companionship.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know who that was for. That was someone. Wow. Let grandma eat. Let grandpa have a date every now and then.
Wow.
Just not the next day now.
It is true that people do heal at different rates. So there are some that are not socially acceptable to be 2 weeks later and you're in another marriage. But
that's mostly us, right? Women will tend to wait at least a year before they even entertain the idea of dating someone else. Men is 3 months. It's 3 months before they entertain the idea.
Well, we have to be touched, you remember?
You said I didn't say that. All the emails and tweets, send that right there. Right over there. At Bishop Bronner.
Tell him it was the doctor's order. Wow. We're going to have to do another session with him because he's let him do some, and we'll talk a little deeper about some relationships, and the whole love thing and how that works, because I find a lot of people that just have not employed wisdom. And the emotions have driven, and you cannot educate your emotions. It's very interesting to watch people make emotional decisions that have no basis in reality. And there's a need that is there. There's a need that's there, and I like for them to get help. I always recommend, a book by H. Norman Wright, Saving Your Second Marriage Before It Starts. And it deals with 9 particular areas that you need to make sure that you've had closure and healing in before you hop into another relationship. That's a critical issue because of bleeding people, and it's sometimes connected even with the loneliness. I think of people when they are bleeding and they are self-loathing and putting off an odor to other people who come around them that essentially says, I don't like myself, I don't want you to like me either. And so, I'm allergic to negative people, so they wind up by themselves. Either or I'll refer them now to Dr. Tart.
Negativity is more powerful than positivity. One negative comment. So if you've ever been in a room and 3 people say, I like the song, and one person said, that second praise and worship song, I don't know about that one. You feel negative. Now you got 3 positive comments, but one negative. So we know in order to balance out positivity and negative, it has to be a 5-to-1 balance, 5 positives for every negative. And what a lot of people do, and why they put that out, is that more than they want to be in a relationship, because there are a lot of people, I want to be in a relationship, but you tell them what to do, or you tell them where to go, and they don't show up.
Oh, right.
All right? They're not ready to be in a relationship. Yeah. They're really focused on being safe. Yeah. And what we know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that safety comes before love. Yeah. If you don't feel safe, why would you be vulnerable to love? Yeah. So this applies to anyone that says, I want a relationship, but I promise you, I will never let another man or woman hurt me. I will never be hurt again. Right. And so guess the best way to not be hurt? 2 things. Push people away, or date unavailable people. Oh. So see, if I date a married man or a married woman or a man that has no capacity to marry, I already know it's not going to work.
Wow.
He's not surprised. He's not hurting me because I already knew what kind of man he was.
Wow. This is calling it. This is a great sign for part 2. Hold up 2 fingers just like this. Wow.